Hello, the French Institute. Actually, I first told the story of Mohammed El-Gharani as a long-form article, which was published in the London Review of Books. And then I turned it into a graphic novel. I don't feel there's so much difference between both texts, because both texts are strongly based on the notes I took interviewing Mohammed over many days, because Mohammed is a real character. The choice was to make a graphic novel which was truly based on his voice, on his own words, and very journalistic. Then there's just maybe one slight difference. It's that in the comics you don't really need to have descriptions of people and of places. It can just be represented by the artists. But I feel that, except that there's not so much difference in the way of telling. Maybe the real difference is between comics and movies, whether of fiction and non-fiction, because movies often seem very industrial, while in comics you just need a pen and a paper, and you can basically tell all what you want. You can create all the special effects you want just with that pen and paper. Well, first I had to convince Mohammed to tell me his story over many days for that long form article. And then I knew he wanted to make something longer, like a book. But I was just worried he may not be that happy with the idea of comics, of graphic novel, that he may not be happy to see his own picture as that of a hero of a comic book. And I was not sure he actually would know about comics and would know how to read them, because it's something you actually need to learn a little bit. And then when I came to him to meet again with the first pages of the book, I was very relieved, because I was amazed he could immediately understand how graphic novel, how comics work, and he could immediately understand how to read them. And so he started to help us a lot, correcting mistakes here and there in the book. And so I guess ultimately he liked the book as it was made. Well, for me as a journalist, working on such topics is my normal work, my usual work. But it was not easy to find the right artist, because comics artists are not really used to such topics, not that much. And actually, several of them refused to work on that project because they found the topic too sensitive. But the artist, Alexandre Franc, from the onset, he chose an approach which was of distance. He said from the start that he was not an activist and would need some distance with the topic. And so somehow it's quite close to what is the classical journalistic approach. And I guess it makes the book a good example of the merging of two very different worlds, that of journalism and that of comic books. Actually, even before that, I was in touch with two former detainees based in France, and who helped me a bit to do some fact-checking about some details of the prison. And then later on, one of them took part in the launch of the French version of the book. And another detainee called Mohammed El-Gharani, who became famous for writing his own book, Guantanamo Diary, took part to the launch of the English version of the book in the United States. So I guess all those former detainees actually liked the book as well.
No, it's just how I work. That's the publisher who chose this style by asking me to do it. I couldn't have done it in a different way because my way of drawing is like this. It's my I think it's my the way the way you draw is the reflection of your personality. So I must be like this, and I can't. I think before to ask me, there were several other cartoonists that make essays on one particular page and with more realistic and dark and kind of violent styles, and it would have been a completely different book. But they asked me to do it, so I told them I can only draw like this, or this is what it will look like. But I think it was a good, in my opinion, it was a good choice because it can it's an homage. Can you say homage to the strength and the very strong and living personality of Mohammed. I wanted to transcribe this to treat him as a very powerful and intrepid character fighting and like you see in the cartoons. I think it's yes, it's a genre that developed much since about 10 years. Maybe coming from well, maybe Mouse in America was the first graphic novel of this kind, and then came in France Marjane Satrapi's Persepolis, and after those big success books, people understood that you could tell great stories from the real life with comic strip, because comic strip makes the stories more you can recreate the life and the characters from the story with the comic book and make it maybe more interesting, more efficient for the reader than just an article